Hi everyone, this is Chuck way up north in the land of the Iditarod and Yukon Quest. Welcome to the Pine Ridge Corner. He lived from 1805 to 1898 and is best remembered for his great work in providing both an education and the daily needs of over 120,000 children, many of them orphans. His name was George Mueller. He was also an evangelist and a missionary. His dependence on God alone to provide all of his needs is a message that has long been lost in most of the churches today. No doubt if Mueller saw the state of the church today, he'd be both shocked and grieved beyond words. The church in general today falls far short of God's desire that his people rely upon him as their sole source for everything they need. George Mueller grew up during the early 1800s in Germany. His mother died when he was just 14 years old. He was a youth with no real direction in life, stealing money from his father, sneaking out of hotels twice without paying, and doing jail time at 16 for stealing. As a Bible college student, he was more interested in drinking and gambling than in studying the Bible. Then he accepted an invitation to a Bible study, intending to make fun of the others. But to his surprise, he actually enjoyed it, and was most impressed with those who were there who knew and loved God. He ended up going every evening. Of his experience, he wrote, "The whole made a deep impression on me. I was happy, though if I had been asked why was I happy, I could not have clearly explained it. I have not the least doubt that on that evening God began a work of grace in me." By the end of the week, George Mueller went to his knees and made a decision for Jesus Christ. George knew his calling was that of a missionary. Well, his father was not happy about this and cut off his school money. With nowhere else to turn, George prayed to God for his needs to be met. And within an hour, his prayer was answered when a professor knocked on his door and offered him a paid tutoring job. After college, George was eager to begin missionary work in London. However, Germany required healthy young men like him to serve a year in the army. But God had other plans. He became extremely ill and nearly died. He was rejected by the army, and after recovering, was now free to set off for England as a missionary. He pastored a small church which rented pews to rich members sitting in front. He was to be paid a salary from the proceeds, but he would have nothing of it. He said the practice had to stop if he was to be the church's pastor, and so it was. George refused to take a salary, instead trusting God entirely for all of his needs. George Mueller had a heart for homeless children who lived on the street or in state-run poorhouses where they were mistreated. God wanted him to build an orphanage, so he started to pray for the building, staff, furniture, money, food, clothing, everything. He waited on God, and soon God provided everything that he had asked for. George never doubted God's ability to provide for the children. One morning he was told by the house mother that there was nothing for the 300 children to eat. George had her take them into the dining room and sit at the tables. He then thanked God for the food and waited. Soon there came a knock at the door. It was a baker. He told George that he could not sleep all night. He knew that bread would be needed. He baked 3 batches, and the bread was brought in. Soon there was another knock at the door. This time it was the milkman. His cart was on the road outside with a broken wheel. The milk would go sour before repairs could be made. George accepted his offer of free milk, and 10 large cans were brought into the dining room. When a child reached the age when they could then live on their own, George prayed with them, putting a Bible in their right hand and a coin in the left. Then they were told, "Hold on to what is in your right hand, and God will see that there is always something in the left." At the age of 70, George became a traveling missionary. For the next 17 years, he and his wife Susanna visited 42 countries, including Switzerland, Canada, the United States, and India. He preached an average once a day and reached an estimated 3 million people. His life was based on an unwavering faith in the all-encompassing sovereignty of God. When he had a need, he took it to God in prayer. He never asked people directly for money. When a bill needed to be paid with no money on hand to pay it, Mueller didn't fret. "How the means are to come," he once wrote, "I know not, but I know that God is almighty. The hearts of all are in his hands, and if he pleases to influence persons, they will send help." George Mueller died in 1889 at the age of 92. Listen to these wonderful words penned by Mr. Mueller, which are for you and for me and for all believers. My dear Christian reader, will you not try this way? Will you not know for yourself the preciousness and the happiness of this way of casting all your cares and burdens and necessities upon God? This way is as open to you as it is to me. Everyone is invited and commanded to trust in the Lord, to trust in Him with all of his heart, to cast his burden upon Him, and to call upon Him in the day of trouble. Will you not do this, my dear brethren in Christ? I long that you may do so. I desire that you may taste the sweetness of that state of heart, in which, while surrounded by difficulties and necessities, you can yet be at peace, because you know that the living God, your Father in heaven, cares for you. You know, these are words I want to live by as George Müller did. How about you? Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Be sure to join us on YouTube. Just enter the keywords Pine Ridge Corner